Hi, my friends. It is a cold night in the Berg. We are sans Chris Fletcher, who unfortunately had other commitments tonight. But we have a special guest. He is the one time uh, Clairton star, went to Murray State, where he became the first African American to get a scholarship south of the Mason Dixon line in D1 basketball at a not traditionally black school. And he was a Pittsburgh Condor, where he set the all time ABA single game record. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you Stew Johnson. Stu, how are you tonight?
I'm fine, David.
All right. All right.
Uh,
Uh,
watching
you,
the girls play was really good.
yeah, that's good. That's good. Your daughter Precious is certainly a good part of that great Duquesne team.
I think they're going to get better and better as the season goes on.
Absolutely, absolutely. That was a big win today in double overtime. But
Well, yeah.
I'll tell you what. Why don't you start out? You played at Clairton. Why don't you
hmm
talk about your days there?
Well, my days at Clairton, we were the first time Clairton High School had won their section, and it was kind of special because Clairton has always been known as football power. Always tough in WPIAL.
Right?
And we won our championship and went on. We beat a couple teams. We lost to Mount Lebanon, I believe, in the quarterfinals, but it was a great experience and got great exposure so that I got quite a few offers from different schools to come to play collegiate basketball.
Now you were
And
originally offered at NYU and Wichita State, as I recall.
as those were the main schools at that time, and they were always in the top 10 in the country, so I was really quite flattered to be offered but I had over 125 different offers.
Impressive.
So, that's kind of hard to narrow it down, but eventually it narrowed down and I went to a then unknown Murray State College.
Okay.
And that was quite an adventure.
Well, you were your coach there was Cal Luther, and why don't you talk a little about how he kind of persuaded you to come down there? Because you had a discussion at Kentucky, who, if I'm not mistaken, wanted you until they saw you were African American.
Absolutely. Uh, Adolph Rupp was the coach at the time. I went down there for my visit, and when they saw that I was an African American player, he opted to say that he would like me to go to junior college. And by that time, basketball would be open for integration in the South. And I did not want to wait 2 years for anything like that. And actually, my ego was hurt when he said that because, consequently, you saw what happened. They lost the national championship to Texas El Paso, an all black team.
Yep.
So I felt vindicated by that. But I went to Murray State. Actually, when you go as a teenager, you don't really know what you're getting into, particularly in the early 60s, because it was very turbulent times. And it wasn't the easiest of choices that I made. And often I did regret making that choice because it was very, 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 very difficult being the only black on the team. And the guys on the team that I played with had never played with or against black players. And all of those towns that we played in Western Kentucky, which was a national power, and a few others, um, I wasn't well received at all. But through the perseverance of Cal Luther, who took a very big chance because none of the coaches wanted to take that chance at the time. Everybody's waiting for the next guy to be the first black player. And yeah, it was rough for me. But in retrospect, I realized that it was very rough for him too because nobody wanted to have a black player at that time. But I
No,
stayed, during those days, as a freshman, you couldn't play on the varsity, so I had 3 years of varsity there at Murray State, and then I found out when I went down there for this thing they had retiring my shirt. Found out that after 58 years, I'm still the fourth leading rebounder in Murray State history, and score in the top five of the. And they've had some great players like Popeye Jones and
yeah,
more recently John Moran.
yes.
And when we had this retirement thing, it was at halftime, and we saw Murray State play against Bradley University, who was at that time undefeated, 6-0, but they won. Murray won the game, and I just sat back and just thought, wow, when I played, I was the only black player on the team. I looked at Murray State's team. I didn't see any white players. I said, "Whoa, how times have changed." But they changed their status over the period of time. They were Murray State College when I went there, but now they're Murray State University.
Right. Now,
Hmm.
your mother wasn't real keen on you going there
No,
when you were recruited.
no, 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 no. Both my parents, their families are from the South, and they did not want me to have to experience what they experienced at the time. But after they made the choice, well, see, the coach came up to Clareton, and he brought one of the black dignitaries from Murray with him, and he kind of smooth talked my parents into, like, I'll make sure he goes to church, and I'll make sure he does all of this, and I'll protect him down there, and it, it worked out.
Good. Good. Now, what your teammates, as you said, they didn't take to you well at the beginning. Why don't you talk a little about um, how it was at the beginning of your time down there?
Well, the main thing was that most of the upperclassmen had never played against a black player or black teams before, and this is the early '60s, man. This is when integration was hitting full bloom. Dr. King, Ralph Abernathy, and all the others were down in Nashville, Tennessee, and I went through a trial by error thing down there with them. The sit-ins and to show that we were nonviolent, and it didn't quite fit my character. So after 2 weeks, I stopped that program. But it was ooh, what a different change from Clareton, Pennsylvania to Murray, Kentucky in the early '60s. Everything was, yeah, it was just super racial, and all the things that were happening around us. The kids killed at Fort Dead in Ohio, and bombings of the churches, and I had some experiences where actually the Ku Klux Klan burned crosses in front of where I was living, and yeah, chased off. Had to run across the field a few times. Yeah, and a lot of those things I quite naturally did not express to my parents because had they known that, I would have been out of Murray in 5 seconds flat. They were so afraid for my safety and everything. And being a teenager, I didn't really understand just how dangerous it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the story of Murray, Kentucky. And when I went down there for the retirement of the jacket of my uniform, I didn't realize how emotional it would be because a lot of those bad experiences I had suppressed over the years.
Yes.
You know, selective memory. Try to
Right.
remember the good things, suppress the old things, and through all the questioning and everything, some of these things came to the surface, and after 58 years, it still bothered me.
Yeah, it's
And
understandable.
good chance to talk about it because it's kind of cleansing when you can talk it and you get it out of your system.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, the impressive thing about your time there is you went through all that, and by the end of your career there, you were all conference, um, and were playing at such a high level. I mean, how did you um, well, how were you able to focus on that with everything you had gone through?
Well, I'll be very sincere. While I was there, I met a young lady who I eventually married, and her family kind of took me under their wings, to protect me and educate me in the etiquette of being a black man in the South in the early 60s, because Clairton was not like that.
Right.
And they protected me, and I tried to use all those negatives and turn them into a positive. They said I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that, and I just had the mentality that I'll show you I can, and it was very difficult actually because at one point they even turned off the telephones in my dormitory so that I couldn't be reached by NYU coach Lou Rossini and
Right.
coach from Wichita, Iowa State, and all of it. I actually, Dave, I didn't find out until this week that the school had done that. One of the former players was telling me and telling the man that sponsored the retirement. That's the case of what happened.
Oh,
And
wow.
the guy's name is Dr. Richard Hurt and his wife Mary and son Ryan. They pursued the thing to the point that I went down there. Only thing that I found negative about that is most retirements that I have witnessed, they also give you your uniform in a frame and everything. And I didn't receive that, so they held back a little bit on that.
Yeah.
But I'm thankful for the recognition that is down there. And when you're down there and you're going through these things, it's like you don't see the forest for the trees, or whatever the case may be. I didn't realize the impact of it until many years later.
Absolutely. Well, it's quite an honor.
Yes, wonderful honor.
Yeah.
And uh, I was blessed to have my two of my children there, well, my granddaughter, my sister, uh, my first family from my first wife, who still regard me as brother, and then as I said, this man, Mr. Dr. Richard Hurt. He and I played only freshman ball together, and then he went off somewhere and he became a great doctor. Worked at Mayo Clinic and all of those things, and hmm, John Hopkins Hospital. Yeah,
Now, when you got out of Murray, you were taken by the Knicks
yeah.
and played well, but unfortunately didn't make it. Just tell us what happened there.
Well, to my knowledge, what happened was there was an unwritten code in the NBA before that. There was only a certain amount of black players on the team, and it had to be an even number because they did not permit white players and black players to room together. Went through the exhibition season with them. I was a third leading scorer in exhibition. The coach at that time, Red Holtzman, had told me, "You're on the team. Pick your number and everything." And he assigned Emmett Bryant and Willis Reed to help me find a place to live. So first day of the game, I show up and the coach, they didn't have my uniform or anything. He said that we have four black players on the team, and according to our rulings, we'll send you down to the Eastern League, and if anybody gets hurt, we'll bring you up. and it never turned out that way. My ego was bruised and everything, so I went to play ball in South America, and when I came back, yeah, I had a run in with Coach Red Holtzman about that, and he said, "There's no written rule about that. This is common with every team in the NBA. There has to be an even number of blacks on the team." And thank God, the next thing happened. The ABA came along. That was my savior. That was it.
Where'd you start out when in the ABA?
Kentucky Colonels. I
So,
was with the Kentucky Colonels. In fact, the first 8, 10 games, I was second leading scorer behind Louis Dampier, who was all-time great scorer for the ABA.
right.
And I had an altercation with one of the players on the team, and he's we got into a tussle. He swung at me, missed. I swung and didn't miss. And unfortunately, the owner of the team was there, and I don't know if I can say this on your podcast or not, but she used the N word and told me to get out of there.
Yeah.
And the next day, I was traded to the New Jersey Americans, and that's when the roller coaster thing happened. 9 teams in 9 years.
When did you hook back in Pittsburgh?
Pardon me.
When did you hook back in Pittsburgh with the Condors?
Um, I left New Jersey and played in Houston for the Houston Mavericks. And at the end of the season, I got traded to Pittsburgh, and I was super elated because Connie Hawkins was still on the team, and wow, I'm going to play with the Hawk. And unfortunately for me, but fortunately for him, the NBA made a settlement with him. They gave him $1 million, and he went to the NBA. But I enjoyed my time in Pittsburgh. I just don't think the people in Pittsburgh enjoyed me because I was the first player in the ABA to score 62 points.
Which you did in a Condor uniform, correct?
Absolutely. And had I been anywhere else, I think I would have gotten more publicity. Uh, in fact, the year that I scored the 62 points, they traded me a couple months afterwards. I'm thinking, wow, how can you trade a guy that just scored 62 points in the game?
Wow,
But it happens.
it does.
And the Condors was a very turbulent team. The ownership was very shaky. They tried to build us as a bunch of hoods and thugs with John Brisker and all these other players. But John Brisker, in my eyesight, he was one of my best friends on the team. And they just tried to build that image to get some kind of notoriety for the team.
Now, was Brisker? I mean, and I'm sure a lot of it came from that. He certainly didn't have good PR around the league. But you had told me he was a good guy, and he was a great talent for sure.
Super talent. Yeah, he just I don't know, Mark Benstein and some other guys who were involved with the club at that time, they encouraged him to do things like get in the fights, punch guys, and they labeled him heavyweight champion of the ABA. That took took everything away from the basketball aspect of how he could play and how we could play. We actually had a very, very talented squad, but we had in those 2 years, I think we had 5 coaches. I mean, wow. So in a way, it hurt me because they used in the newspapers in Pittsburgh, they said the only reason I was on the team was because half of the crowd were my family from Pittsburgh, from Clareton, which was true.
I was going to say, I recall there were many empty seats for that team.
Then we had a guy who was a coach, Buddy Jeanette, who had been in the NBA for years. I knew that I was doomed because I had scored 62, and then the next game I had like 30 some. And he told me, all you can do is shoot. And so when we're sitting on the bench, He took his chair and turned it around and faced the audience. He didn't want to see me play.
Oh, jeez.
I was like, come on, buddy. And at that time, even though I had scored like I did, I was the lowest paid guy on the team, and that's probably the reason why I got traded.
Yeah.
That somebody could get a talent for very little money, and I went from there to Carolina, and then I had a good break by going to San Diego under the tutelage of Casey Jones, and then later Will Chamberlain. Yeah,
Well, your career was phenomenal. I mean, you ended up being top 10 all-time scorer in the ABA. Certainly
yeah.
one of, if not the premier three-point shooter at a time where the three-point was a heck of a shot. That was a long shot back then.
Oh yeah, it was a long shot, and the mentality was different because anybody who was 6'7", 6'8", you were destined to play under the basket. And every team I ever played for in the ABA, I was the best shooter.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not bragging, that's truth. I was just the best shooter.
Stats back it up.
But that if basketball game was like it is today, where they have you on the perimeter taking jump shots, that
Right.
was my game. Mid-range jumper, 3-pointers. But that all the coaches kept saying, "Well, you're a big guy. Get under the basket." And coach, can't you don't you recognize talent? Some guys are built for that. Some guys are not.
Right.
And so, 9 teams, 9 years, man. But
Well,
the last years were super because I made the All-Star team under the KC and Will Chamberlain.
good. Good. Well deserved. Now you had a successful career in Europe after and a successful coaching career.
Yeah, yeah, that was a wonderful thing. The basketball in Europe was so different then because there wasn't a lot of money, but I just loved the game, man. When I went over there, I not only was a player, but I was the player coach. So I never came out of the game. I played 48 minutes all the time. I thought as a coach, it was easier for me to make changes on the floor if I'm on the floor without
Right.
having to call a timeout or anything. And it worked out well. I played over there Division One ball till I was 55, man.
That's impressive.
And
That's
then
impressive.
the next year that I was going to sign a contract, they looked at my name's Stew Johnson, date of birth, and they said, "Well, wait, you have 1940? You mean 1964, don't you?" I said, "No, coach, I'm 1944." And then all of a sudden, the offers just evaporated. Well, we're looking for younger players.
Right.
Even in Europe, I played in 7, 8 countries. I was always the leading scorer in every country I played in.
Awesome. That is
Awesome.
awesome. Now you've given your talent to your daughter Precious, who's at Duquesne now.
Yeah,
Um,
she's a talent.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. And you told me a nice story that you had a meeting with the girls over a Zoom meeting,
Yeah,
um, where you talked about um, what they were going through at the time and what you had been through in your days at Murray State.
yeah. And they found that most of them didn't believe that life was like that in the 60s. And the things that I had to go through, and players who followed me had to go through the same thing. But it's a different thing for a person when you are the first, because there's no ground rules or pattern for it. You take it day by day, and all the racial problems that we had. And I told Dan Burt and the girls at the time, the only regrets that I have is that 50 years later, I'm talking to you about the same thing. Nothing has changed in reality, and it's up
Yeah,
to their generation to make any changes.
right.
We tried, we tried the best we could, but 50 years later, when you look back, and it really hurt me because I'm thinking I don't want my daughter to go through what I went through.
Sure.
not in my hometown, that's for sure.
Right.
And yeah, that kind of hurt me in a way, but I was glad to be able to relate that to them because nobody wanted to, and nobody today, well, most people today don't want to hear about
Right.
racial history. And
Absolutely.
you have to look back so that you can see how far you progressed.
Right.
And I hope it was helpful to them because on the team at Duquesne, we had some girls from Europe, and now they have girls from France, or they have some girls from Africa. I mean, it's a nice mess of girls, and I always felt after I left Murray that that sport was always the main thing to help with integration.
Right.
You learn to be. When I played in the ABA, it was quite different. Most of my roommates were white guys. That was cool.
Yeah.
You know, we had a guy from Pittsburgh. What time? I think you might remember his name, Walt Serbiak.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
me and Walt Serbiak were teammates with Pittsburgh, and then when I went to Europe, I played against him in the European Championships. He was with Real Madrid, who were the champions, and I played for a team out of Switzerland, and I had given him a nickname when we played with the ABA. I called him Scooby Doo. You know, so out there and they're introducing the players, and I didn't realize because they only called him Walter. They couldn't pronounce his last name so much.
Right.
So when he went on the floor and they said Walter, I hollered out Scooby Doo. He turned around, Stu boy. Oh, nice reunion.
Oh, that's
Although
good.
they kicked our butts good, but it was nice reunion.
Yeah, that's good.
His son went on to be a star in the NBA as well.
Yes, he did. Yes, he
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Certainly. Now, it 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 took an extremely long time for Murray State to retire your number. Is
Hmm.
that something that troubled you through the years, or
Yes.
was it something you just kind of were able to get past?
Well, for a while it bothered me because they were retiring the jerseys of guys who came after me 10, 15 years after me, and they didn't have the credentials that I had at Murray State. And I was like, dang, man. So for 58 years, I never went back. I didn't realize it was 58 years. I tried to forget it,
Right.
but I have two sons that live down there in Murray area, and then my ex-wife and her family are all there, and it was quite a reunion. I hadn't seen these people in over 50 years.
Well, Stu, I always enjoy talking to you. You're an inspiration, um, and certainly one of the greatest players ever to come out of this area. And I thank you so much for coming on.
I appreciate you for having me, man. We have been trying to get this thing together for a number of years, and I'm glad we finally brought it to be.
Uh, Me
And
too. Me too.
I thank you so much, David.
You got it. Stu,
Uh,
you have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for coming on.
Okay, thank you, Dave. All right. God bless.
God bless you. All right. That was Stu Johnson. He's certainly what a great story. We had the honor of telling it in our book, Integrating Pittsburgh Sports. And I just get the biggest kick every time I get a chance to talk to him because he's such an inspiration. And he's a player that maybe we forget in this area, but he was certainly one of the greatest ever to come out here. But anyways, we will be back next week with our friend Chris Fletcher. Um, talk a little Steeler football. I was at that game, and let me tell you, ugly isn't even a good word for what went on there. Um, and I stick to my claim that right now, out of the Penguins, that's not going to get better because you can't coach speed and youth when you don't have speed and youth. So they're struggling. So the Pittsburgh Pirates, my friend, with the arms in that system, call me crazy now, but 2 years from now, that team is going to certainly be a playoff team. I'm not going to say competing for a playoff. I'm going to say in 2 years, it is a playoff team. Once Paul Skeens comes up, once that farm system, Jared Jones, shows you the arms, this is the deepest farm system we've had since the 1960s. So they are the closest to a title. And if you're looking for winning right now in this area, you look no further than Duquesne University, because let me tell you, it's been since 1977 since the men's team has been invited to an NCAA tournament. Before I was a undergrad, before Chris Fletcher was an undergrad. I think this team has the talent to challenge for one of those spots. The A-10 probably will get one spot this year, possibly two. But right now, from all the experts, they're claiming they're certainly in the top three in the A-10. And from what I see, struggled a little early on as they were getting used. I mean, you have 10 brand new players. It's not something where they're all going to mesh instantaneously. But once that team got together, they're playing much better ball right now. I'm excited. I know Chris would tell me if he was on right now, quit doing that to me, because I've been doing that to him. Half the time I do it for fun, but I get him excited. Then he gets mad at me when they don't make it. But it's a different feeling this year. The teams we have struggled with, the teams we love the most, both of us, are Duquesne and the Pirates. And I think what we're going to see is a nice turnaround for that. Hopefully, strangely enough, after Sunday's games, the Steelers are in a playoff spot, even after two ugly losses. So it's not an impossible thing, but I truly believe if Kenny Pickett was playing that game, they beat the New England Patriots. On that last drive, there are passes that I believe Kenny Pickett would have hit that Mitch was unable to, unfortunately. But I truly believe that Kenny Pickett would have won that game. But hey, if Terry Bradshaw was still 28 years old, he would have won the game too, and we'd be probably undefeated. But would-haves, could-haves doesn't win ball games. But it certainly was ugly. We've been fans of Coach Tomlin, but it's a results-based business, and you got to take the criticism when things aren't going right, and we'll see what happens. Pitt made a great OC hire today. I believe he's from. I'm going to check that out real quick. I believe it's Western Carolina. But my good friend, the title man, Joe Huber, sent me a thing on that as soon as it happened. And it is Western Carolina. Cade Bell, who was their offensive coordinator, and I will read you these impressive stats, is the new offensive coordinator for Pitt. First in total offense in FCS, first in scoring, first in rushing, first in passing efficiency, first in first downs, first third down efficiency, first in the red zone. I mean, I'm not sure what other stats you like, but you know what? He's first in scoring, and that's what makes a difference. So hopefully this will be something that'll get Pitt fans excited, that the players will take to, that'll be able to come to fruition. I mean, it was a hot young hire, and I'm certain they put some money out there for him. Heather Lyke, who has a great track record with hiring other coaches. And talking about other sports, boy, that volleyball game the other day was that was excitement. Saturday, I got to tell you, it has to be. I'm in retail management, so weekends in December is a no-go for me. And my boss kindly gave me this weekend off. My dad was an Army guy, so I root for Army. Army Navy is the game I look forward to. It's at the top of my bucket list is to go to one day. What a thrilling game that was. Stopping Navy at the 1 foot line as time just about ran out to hold on for a 17-11 win. Then I love soccer. Okay. nearest MLS team to me is Columbus. So I've always rooted for the Columbus Crew, who played an exciting game in a driving rain. Went up 2-0 in the first half, held on for a 2-1 win. MLS Cup champions had to move a pennant downstairs in the man caves so I can have space for the new Columbus Crew championship pennant. One day we'll take you down there and show you the man cave ceiling, which is full of pennants. And then I luckily have two TVs in my office here, and on the main screen I had Pitt volleyball on ESPNU. Went down 2-0. Second time this has happened against Louisville. They're probably their main rivals in the ACC. And we're in the Elite Eight. You're down 2-0. Place is sold out. The Fitzgerald Fieldhouse sold out in 15 minutes. People are getting excited about this team, and good reason. They didn't give up. A lot of teams give up when you're down 2-0. It's a hell of a mountain to climb. This team didn't. This team fought back. This team tied it up at 2. Fifth game is always a 15-point, first to 15-point winner take all. And Pitt just dominated Louisville in that last set and ended up winning and going to their third consecutive Final Four. I mean, before Heather Light comes here, we were to one Final Four, and that was 1941 basketball. Since she's been here, we've been to 2 men's soccer Final Fours. We've been to now 3 women's volleyball Final Fours. You include a Elite Eight by the women's soccer team this year. Today, the 19th ranked men's wrestling team upset number 5 Ohio State. So things are looking up just about everywhere. And I do think the Pitt basketball team, they've struggled against some of the tougher teams this year. But at 6-3, and again, it's a lot of new guys coming in. The way they played against West Virginia at the end of the game, and a tough Canisius team that they should have beat, but were struggling with. But again, closed well to win that game after the volleyball game. Boy, I'll tell you, I think Heather Like, Wunberg elected Kutch as the Pittsburgher of the year, and a well-deserved one, but Heather Like had to be a strong consideration for that too. She has really brought Pitt back, and hopefully the new offensive coordinator will make a great impression on this team. They fill the offense a little through the transfer portal. They have probably Narduzzi's best recruiting class coming in next year. So hopefully that'll turn around and we get back to winning college football in the area. But anyways, next week we'll have my boy Chris back. We always mention little Donnie Lavelle from Arkansas, who he had a tough time. His beloved Ohio State lost not only to Pitt in wrestling, but blew an 18-point lead against Penn State last night. Penn State beat them at home. Then his alma mater, Kent State, loses to the Duquesne women today. But he rebounded. Brown's defense, which I claim is the best defense in football, did hold on. They were dominating Jacksonville, but had to hold on for a 31-27 win. So to you, little Donnie Lavelle, congratulations. And to you guys out there, you have a wonderful evening. We'll see you next week.